Angel Reese says WNBA players could go on strike over salary. She's got to be the worst shooter you've met.
Angel Reese, a rising star known for her collegiate achievements and charismatic presence, recently ignited controversy by suggesting that WNBA players could and perhaps should consider going on strike unless their salaries and benefits were improved. Her remarks, delivered during an Instagram live session, focused on the perceived disparity between the compensation of WNBA players and the revenues generated by the league. Reese's argument was underscored by her personal financial struggles, including claims that her annual rookie salary of approximately $74,000 was insufficient to cover basic living expenses such as rent.
You should probably look at what the career earnings are of going into that field. What I'll also say is this: every single one of you WNBA players, you better pray.
This was particularly surprising given her storied collegiate career at LSU, where she had been among the highest-earning athletes of the NIL era. At LSU, her marketability was off the charts, with endorsement deals from major brands and an NIL valuation that reportedly soared to around $1.8 million. In essence, Reese was not just a talented basketball player, she was a brand in herself. Yet, despite her previous earning power, she now finds herself on a rookie contract in the WNBA that many critics argue is a significant step down in terms of financial compensation. In her view, the low salary structure in the WNBA is emblematic of a larger systemic issue. Reese argued that if players are not paid what they deserve based on the league's revenue generation, then they have every right to withhold their participation. Her comments were bold, suggesting that a strike could serve as a powerful negotiating tool. However, the idea of a walkout or strike from professional athletes is laden with complexity, particularly in a league that has historically operated at a financial loss. Not long after Reese's statements were broadcast, Patrick Bet-David offered a rapid-fire rebuttal that left little room for ambiguity.
That Caitlin Clark doesn't get injured.
Because if you know Patrick Bet-David, you already know he dismantles CEOs, influencers, athletes.
Known for his no-nonsense style and his ability to dissect economic and business realities, Bet-David did not mince words when addressing Reese's comments. His argument centered on a fundamental economic principle. One cannot demand a higher share of revenue when the underlying business is not profitable. And Bet-David's response was a masterclass in financial analysis. He pointed out that the WNBA, unlike its NBA counterpart, has never posted a profit. Instead, it has consistently operated as a loss-making enterprise, with its revenue largely subsidized by the NBA. With revenues estimated at around $150–200 million, or as a figure that some sources suggest is even lower than the headline number, the league has never generated enough profit to justify higher salaries through revenue sharing. In Bet-David's view, the notion that players could simply strike to demand a larger cut of the pie was not only naive, but also economically unsound.
Strikes in history. 1994, the MLB strike. It was the first time that the World Series was.
He emphasized that any move toward a strike would essentially force the league to operate on cost savings rather than profit sharing. Without generating additional revenue, there's no larger pie to be divided among the players. For Bet-David, the economics of the situation are clear. If the league is not profitable and is continually operating at a loss, then a strike would only highlight the structural deficiencies of the business model without yielding the desired financial improvements for the athletes. To truly understand the debate, it's necessary to delve into the financial realities of the WNBA. The league, despite its growing popularity and cultural impact, has historically been more of a marketing and social platform than a profit-making enterprise. Its revenue primarily comes from sponsorships, broadcasting deals, and occasional financial injections from the NBA. In recent years, there have been notable improvements in fan attendance, merchandise sales, and television viewership, a trend largely credited to rising stars like Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark has emerged as a beacon of change for the league. Unlike Reese, whose on-court performance has been questioned by critics for being more about stat padding than actual game-winning contributions, Clark has captured the imagination of fans with her dynamic play and leadership.
Strike. In 1994, MLB, NBA, NFL, what's the number one revenue sport in America? What do you think it is? The NFL. How much do you think they make? $17 billion.
Her presence has translated into tangible economic benefits for the league, record-breaking increases in arena attendance, explosive merchandise sales, and significant boosts in TV ratings. In some respects, Clark has become the linchpin holding the league's revenue potential together. Despite these positive indicators, the WNBA remains a league that relies on external subsidies and is far from being self-sustaining. Over the past few years, the league has seen losses ranging from $40 million to $50 million annually. Bet David's analysis underscores that these losses have been a constant reminder that the league is operating in a financial vacuum.
You guys are a alleged $150 to $200 million company. You're operating at a loss every single year. You've never made money. It's called a zombie.
In most professional sports, strikes are rare and typically only occur when the revenue model is robust enough that players have the leverage to demand a larger share of profits. In the case of the WNBA, a strike would eliminate the few revenue streams the league currently has, such as broadcast deals and sponsorship agreements, which often provide fixed payments regardless of gameplay. Without the games taking place, the league would save money in operational costs, but that saving would not translate into higher paychecks for the players. In effect, the financial hemorrhaging that Bet David outlines would continue unabated, leaving no extra pie for the athletes to claim. Moreover, the strike scenario raises questions about long-term implications. If WNBA players were to halt play, it could lead to a decline in fan interest, a further erosion of sponsorship deals, and ultimately, a weakening of the league's overall brand. For a league that is still striving to establish itself as a viable business model, the risks of such a drastic measure may outweigh any potential short-term gains. While the debate about salary and strike tactics rages on, another narrative has been emerging around the undeniable impact of superstar performers like Caitlin Clark. Clark's arrival in the league has coincided with record-breaking attendance figures, explosive merchandise sales, and a dramatic uptick in television viewership. These metrics suggest that when a player of her caliber enters the scene, the entire ecosystem benefits. Critics of Reese's strike rhetoric often point out that the success of the league is closely tied to the performance and marketability of players like Clark.
Something that, we could just take a donation around the NBA maybe one night y'all don't go to the casinos.
I have something on this, though.
When Clark is on the court, the economic benefits are clear. Arenas are filled to capacity, merchandise is flying off the shelves, and TV ratings are surging. It is not an exaggeration to say that the financial viability of the WNBA is, in many ways, riding on the back of this rising star. In this context, the comparison between Reese and Clark becomes particularly stark. While Reese's remarks have centered on the need for higher compensation in light of her personal financial struggles, Clark's performance has been a boon for the league's overall revenue. It appears that the players who are truly driving the economic engine of the WNBA are not the ones who are calling for strikes or complaining about their salaries, but those whose on-court contributions and off-court marketability are generating real value. This dichotomy brings into focus the underlying tensions within the league. Veteran players and analysts have pointed out that the true measure of a player's impact should be reflected not just in individual statistics or headline-grabbing moments, but in the ability to drive revenue, secure sponsorships, and build a sustainable brand for the league.
Because it pisses me off. It pisses me off because I don't think there's anyone in America that supports the WNBA.
In this light, the argument that a strike could magically result in better pay becomes not only impractical, but also counterproductive. As Bet David noted, the financial reality is that without a profitable revenue stream, there is no surplus to share with players regardless of how vocal they are about their demands. To fully appreciate the current debate, it is helpful to consider the historical context of strikes in sports and the economic models that underpin professional leagues. In major North American sports, strikes have typically occurred in leagues with robust financial models where players have substantial bargaining power. For instance, the 1994 Major League Baseball strike, which resulted in the cancellation of the World Series, was a high-stakes confrontation in an industry where revenues were substantial enough that a pause in play could force negotiations. By contrast, the WNBA's revenue structure has always been much more modest. Since its inception, the league has operated under a model where the majority of its funding comes indirectly from the NBA or through fixed sponsorship deals. Every year, the league posts a loss on its financial statements, a reality that underscores the inherent risks in attempting to apply the same economic strategies from profitable leagues to one that is still evolving.
ROI on your investment. You chose this profession. You know how much you make in the WNBA. If you go to college, you're going to become a major, look at the ROI on the major. If you go to trade school, look at the ROI.
When players in a profitable league strike, The threat is that a well-funded organization might be forced to address inequities because the revenue stream is large and the players' share is a significant percentage of it. In the case of the WNBA, however, the entire revenue is limited, and a strike would likely lead to further financial instability. Patrick Bet-David's argument draws heavily on this historical and economic context. He argues that expecting the WNBA to suddenly become profitable or for the players to receive a larger percentage of revenue through a strike is fundamentally misguided. The league's financial trajectory has been consistent. Year after year,